Hey guys, so this is going to be hopefully much quicker. I know the last one was a bit longer. I just really wanted you to really understand that those symbols, right, are the Iroquois symbols for to prove, not prove, but to represent how they are unified together, how they are close, how they are a nation, an Iroquois confederacy. We're going to look at some modern day society, some examples about our collective identity. So one thing is like for us, one thing that we might kind of go along with, sorry, for collective identity is the idea of consumerism. So consumerism, if you don't know, right, is when we buy something, we buy a product, we often consume it. That doesn't mean consume kind of means eating, right? But also it's more than that, it means using. So if I buy a PS4 and I use it, I'm consuming the product. Because the moment you start using it, you actually start taking away from it. It's actually kind of dying. It's less valuable than when you just bought it. So you're consuming some of it. And so what happens is, as a collective identity, we have this thing called brand loyalty. That's when you go down to the store or you go to a restaurant and you say, do you want a Coke or a Pepsi? And you say, can I have a Coke? And they say, all we have is Pepsi. And you're like, I don't drink that, right? So brand loyalty is the tendency to buy one product over another. We can start identifying, kind of identify as we are iPhone users, right? So you can say I would never use something else. I would never use an Android phone. I use an iPhone. That's all I use. Or I don't use PC. I just use Mac. And what happens is, while that's a part of you, you belong to something bigger. You belong to the Mac group, the iPhone group. There is a group of people who have the same kind of values as you. You value whatever the iPhone gives you more value for whatever your reason is, as it does for other people. The same thing with watching media, right? Maybe you watch only Brooklyn Nine-Nine. That's maybe what you're doing over quarantine, right? You value its comedy. You value its storyline. You value its characters, but you become part of the fan base, right? So you maybe don't like Friends. Like, for instance, I struggle watching Friends. So I'm not part of that collective, but I am part of the collective that watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It's a sense of belonging to a group. And so what you have to think about is, like, what product do you consume and what are you a part of? So here we have an example. Which one would you be a part of? Now, some of you might say neither, and that's okay. So you're not part of their collective. But these are some common examples. Maybe you're part of the Xbox or the PS4. I'm PS4. Maybe you're iPhone or Android. I will always be team iPhone, right? But I'm part of that group. Nike or Adidas. Very interesting. I always got an Adidas growing up because they were much cheaper, but as I'm older and I have a job now, I am team Nike, right? And again, it's not the sense that I wouldn't buy an Adidas now, but it's the sense that I like their product, so I go out of my way to buy it, and I'm part of that group who prefers it, right? It's a preference. But it's part of my identity in a way, because I'm buying the stuff. Coke versus Pepsi, I don't have a preference. I don't really subscribe to any of that. So that's one thing, right? Is what you buy becomes a part of who you are and what you belong to. But there's also this idea of ideology. Now, this is a much more a deeper example. So we are still unified by our ideals, right? Kind of what we believe in. Maybe there are things that you stand for or believe in, and that makes you part of a larger collective. So maybe you're part of environmental movements. You're really concerned about how we're treating the planet as human beings, so you really want to make changes. You want us to recycle, you want us to not litter, you want us to not pollute, right? So you belong to this collective who also has the same values. And that becomes part of your identity. You belong to a larger group. Maybe it's human rights, equal rights. Maybe you're vegetarian or vegan, it's animal rights. Maybe it's resource development. Maybe you think we need to develop more oil in the Middle East. We need to get more money and stuff like that. That's fine, but you're part of a collective. You belong to something larger than yourself. And the last one, I think the one that's most relevant, the one is that easily identifiable when we think about where do I belong besides just my lazy boy chair playing video games or watching TikToks. You belong usually to a nation, right? So another example of collective identity is what nationality you belong to. What country do you belong to? These are all symbols that are part of, symbols that represent the values. So for instance, the Iroquois is the wampum belt, It was the Longhouse. For me, as a Canadian, these are some images. Now, I just did a quick Google search, but these are some images that represents people as a collective. First of all, the flag. The flag will always be a symbol of your country. They literally picked an image to represent it. Then also from there we have the flag. We had a totem pole, right, showing the collective as a symbol, showing that we're part of an indigenous heritage. We have a beaver. We have maple syrup. We have hockey. All of these show that I belong to some of these groups, and these groups I belong as a Canadian. What you're going to be tasked when you think about a flag more specifically, right? It's more than just how pretty it is. When someone was making the flag of your country, wherever it is, if you were born in the UAE, if you're born somewhere else, they were thinking things through, right? It reflects something about the country's history and its citizens. And so, for instance, Canada has the red, it has the white. It represents unity, it represents strength, it represents peace. And then it has the maple leaf in the middle. So that's Canada's national, national tree, okay? And it represents kind of that idea of connection to our home soil, right? Things that we grow as part of who we are. And this image, right, connects us to something. It makes us belong to a larger group. And that is Canadianism, right? Not ism, that's not an ism, right? But being Canadian. In the same way that I think what you're going to have to do for the worksheet, you're going to have to think back and think, what makes me, maybe you're Emirati, what makes me Emirati besides being born here? What are the symbols that connect me here? What are the symbols that connect all of us who are Emirati? If you're from Egypt, what are the symbols that make you, as a collective, feel united as Egyptians? Maybe it's the pyramids. And that's what you have to think about, is what are the images that connect you to something bigger than yourself, right? Because that's really what it is. That's what collective identity is. Work on the worksheet. You're going to have to do the wampum belt, and you're going to have to provide an analysis on your flag and think of some symbols for your country. The other two things, the notes, those are optional. I just know that some of you will be done early, and it's better to do more and crush the quizzes than have nothing to do. If you have any questions, we have our Zoom meetings at 12. I will be there, or I will be square. I hope to see you there too.